keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Let's spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands. For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 21st day of August 2019. I trust that everyone had a peaceful, restful, enjoyable evening. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, operating any type of motorized vehicle on the roads of the Cayman Islands, we again urge you to be extremely careful. Please ensure that you observe the rules of the road and always remember that the life you save may be your own. For those of you who are celebrating birthdays today, I want to wish you a happy birthday. One of my neighbors, Mrs. Ethel McLean, she is celebrating a birthday today. I only learned that just a few minutes ago on our WhatsApp group, so I want to give her a big shout out this morning and wish her a happy birthday as well. Mr. Alden McLaughlin Sr., he celebrated his birthday yesterday. That's the Premier's father. I want to wish him belated happy birthday as well. And I'm sure that he had an enjoyable evening with his family. Those of you who have celebrated a birthday in the past few days, again, we want to wish you a belated happy birthday as well. And for those of you who unfortunately have lost loved ones during this period, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you as well, and we hope and trust that your faith will help to carry you through these very challenging times as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the very busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There's always someone there waiting to take your calls. Back on the job from vacation, beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at For The Record. That is one word, For The Record, at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. Today, Wednesday, MLA Mr. Ezard Miller was scheduled to be on, but he's unable to be here today, so he will be on next Wednesday. As a result of that, we have Dr. Steve McField in the studio with us. We will be joined also by the Honorable Mary Lawrence and Miss Theresa Pitcairn. I believe she will try to get in as well. She has a very busy schedule this morning, so we're going to play that by ear in terms of her ability to be here with us. But if she is here, you will certainly hear her voice on the radio as well. Dr. Steve McField, morning. Welcome back to For The Record, sir.
Good morning to you, Mr. For The Record, and good morning to all your For The Record listeners locally and those internationally and those in the diaspora. And good morning to everyone who is in the area where we are broadcasting from today. It's good to be back with you. I'm glad that you invited me to come back today. And I'm glad that you invited me to speak about one of my favorite subjects, and that is education.
Yes.
I was very touched with the Minister of Education in her address to the class of, I think, the
incoming teachers.
Incoming teachers a few days ago.
That's on Monday.
On Monday,
yes.
A few days ago. And I was very touched with that, and it gives me hope that that some of our people, at least some of our people, still stand a chance and getting a education. And what struck me was the theme of her delivery, her presentation, and the word she used, world-class education. That really struck me as being so relevant today, and so meaningful. And that is why I asked you today if we could have a show around the theme of a world-class education.
Certainly. And I know you have some more to share on that. There was some things that you had prepared for your closing comments, but we didn't want it to get lost in the translation. And I know that you have to leave the show early as well.
Yes.
So yes. I want you to continue talking about that.
What I would like to do this morning for all your listeners, I would like to say congratulations to Minister O'Connor Conley for her efforts in providing a world-class education structure for our people. It is not any easy, simple accomplishment after so many decades of neglect and dumpy service that perpetuated a mediocrity structure of national failure in public education. Only a visionary minister like O'Connor Conley, who is spiritually inspired and politically fearless, will and can see this monumental effort through. And I want to say, we have for too long, as a general rule, run the education structure like a gentleman's club. This has placed us on the wrong side of every important policy issue, and not just recently, but for decades. We predict disaster where none occurs. We deny the possibility of events that then happen. We offer fatalism about an inevitable problem. We pay inequality that then starts to recede. We oppose the most basic, decent, and sensible reforms while offering placebos instead. We are always surprised when something untoward, like lack of opportunity, actually occurs. And when finally we sense that some position cannot be sustained, we do not re-examine our ideas, but instead we simply changed the subject. We do all of these things because we refuse to admit that the competitive enterprise of economics is education, and better education. Education in this global world is what controls economic behavior. A country without a world-class education structure will always be controlled by a predatory class of the wealthy. So, a world-class education structure is the defining feature, the leading force of an independent people. And that is what I would like to have the conversation this morning about on your show, Mr. For the Record.
Okay, and I think to have that conversation and to put it in a proper perspective, we have to look at education in the past years, where we have come from as far as education is concerned. From the days after emancipation, for instance, and where we went from there in that regard. And I think you're going to talk about and mention some of prominent educators in the Cayman Islands, whether they were formal or informal as well. What we'll do is we'll take a commercial break, and when we return, we will continue on that subject. Folks, please stay tuned for The Record with Dr. Steve Macfield. We'll continue shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
In 1875, the Jamaican government passed the Wrecking and Salvage Law, directed to protecting the interests of ship owners and insurers and giving adequate redress to persons injured by the wreck. The law passed as a direct result of the wreck of 1874 of the British Iphigenia over the Bordentown Reef, in which residents pillaged the wreck despite no significant damage to the ship. Following an inquiry by the HMS Eclipse 8 days later, local magistrate William B. Webster was castigated and deemed unfit for office after the inquiry determined that he had failed to assist the protection of property and desired to wreck the ship.
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
The dreams of tomorrow stem from the seeds we sow today, whether purchasing your first parcel of land or planning for your future home. These dreams are more than possible with Cayman National by your side. Now offering 100% financing on land loans and home mortgages with only 5% down, up to 35 years or to retirement age. No commitment fee. For more information, contact a personal banker today at personal.banking@caymannational.com or call 949-4655. Plant the seeds of your future today with Cayman National. Terms and conditions apply, and the offer ends September 30th. Cayman National is pleased to advise that they will have a lending officer at their Cayman Bay locations Mondays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Gym tonight?
I have another test today.
Wow, for somebody who isn't in school, you've had a lot of tests this week.
Well, Vamp Motors is giving out fresh baked cookies to customers who test drive SUVs this month. And since I haven't decided what to buy, I'm just test driving each one to see what I like best.
You better test drive that to the gym and back, especially with all those free cookies you're getting from Vamp.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this August at Vamp Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vamp's summer SUV sale. Now through the end of August. That's every SUV in stock on sale. Save up to $4,400 or put the savings towards upgrading your vehicle. Sweeten the deal with Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're
Rotary
good for
Club
you.
Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, we have Dr. Steve McFeel. I have received a call from the Honourable Mayor Lawrence, and she's on her way in as well. So you will hear her voice after the 8 o'clock news as well. Dr. Steve McFeel has pointed out that we're talking about education this morning, and he was inspired by the comments, the speech by the Minister for Education, the Honourable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, when at the Education Professionals Welcome event that took place on Monday and was carried live by Radio Cayman as well. And he was inspired certainly by the expressions that were made there, the commitments that were made to education, and as a result of that, he wanted to really to hammer the whole concept of education home on the show this morning as well. Back to you, Doc.
Yeah, like what I to reiterate what I said only a visionary minister like O'Connor, who is spiritually inspired and politically fearless, will and can see this monumental effort through. Mm-hmm. Now, what I glean from her a vision of a world-class education is an education for success. She also said in her delivery that she wants to have our history taught in our schools. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I would like to say that is one part of our history has been very dismal. We've never had a good history of education in this country ever since public education began shortly after emancipation. Now, the first public schools that were started here was around 1838.
Okay.
And it started in Bodden Town. And it started by the Micro Trust. You know, the Micro Trust from England, and that had been established in Jamaica. And the Micro Trust in Jamaica sent a man here called Andrew Malcolm to teach all these people who had been in bondage and slavery for so many years. And of course, you know that they were not allowed to read and write. They were not allowed to be educated except with the permission of the slave masters. And when Andrew Malcolm came to Bodden Town, he discovered that that there were so many. At first, he started with just a few students, and within a short while, he had nearly 100 students. And he's then started to teach all the black children and the white children together. And of course, the people who had just lost their property, the slave masters who had just lost their property in 3 years, just 3 years down below, 3 years before that, in 1835, when Lord Sligo came and set all of the apprentices free, they were very upset that now that the education, people were going to be educated and everybody was going to be equal through education, because I have always believed that education is the gateway to equality.
The great equalizer.
The great equalizer. And so when all of the black children started going to Andrew Malcolm to be educated, they said that he couldn't do that. He couldn't teach them together in the same place, same building. Now, the building that they had at the time was a rented building in Bodden Town. I don't know who owned it. They just said it was a rented building in Bodden Town. In other words, the people who the slave masters, people were one paying the rent.
I'm sure when Miss Mary gets here, she'll know that.
Miss Mary could tell us more about that. Yes. And so they told him, you can't teach them together. And he said, I'll build a loft and let them go upstairs. I'll put the black children upstairs and I'll go up there and teach them, and they come down and teach the white children. And they said, no, that was not possible unless the black children could pay 6 pence a week. Now, you think you're talking about people who had just left working for hundreds of years without pay, and they were trying to seek their education. They didn't have 6 pence a week to pay for the education. And Andrew Malcolm got upset because they put every obstacle in his way, not to have an integrated school, and he left and went back to Jamaica. And as a result of that, there was a petition from most of the black people in Bodden Town to the Micro Trust people and in Jamaica and in England, saying that Andrew Malcolm was a good man, and he wanted to educate their children. He wanted the best for their children, and they should send him back. Now, that never happened. But following Andrew Malcolm was a man called J.C. Panton, and then there was also a school in Georgetown. Okay. And J.C. Panton came from Jamaica also, and he taught in Prospect and in Bodden Town, and MacTaggart came, and they taught in Georgetown. Now, you notice that all of these schools were not by the government. These schools were one of the first schools was controlled by the Methodist Church, and then the Presbyterian Church started send MacTaggart and all those people here. The government never put money in the education. They never put money in education.
Now, when you say government, you're talking about the local government as opposed to the UK government, which was the administering power. Okay.
The local vestry at the time. And that's sort of lack of education and lack of the ability to educate your people. And I wouldn't say the ability, I would say the lack of the refusal to educate people continued all down through the ages until we got the First Education Act. Now, one of the first things that I discovered, that compulsory education started in England in 1870. 10 years later, it was established in Jamaica in 1880, and we never got compulsory education here until the 1900s. Some 20 years or 25 years after it had been compulsory in England. Now, what we've never done, we have never valued education as a nation building institution. We have never valued education. In fact, we were so scared of educated people that we ostracized the educated people, and the educated people became the vocal and oftentimes the silent minority. So, Ms. O'Connor Conley idea of putting education in our schools is one of the greatest accomplishment that I would have seen happen in my lifetime before I pass on, because we have such great accomplishments in our history of people. Now, America has their David Crockett, and they have their Lincoln, and they have their Washington, and they have their Jeffersons, and they have their Obama, and they have their Clintons, and they have all of those people. And then it occurred to me as they were singing the national song at that function, and I wonder how many people realize who was the author of the national song, who was the person who wrote the national song, and what about her history? That occurred to me. Do all of the new teachers know, and some of the teachers know anything about Leela McTaggart Rothshire? Do they know that? Do they know anything about that? Do they know anything about Teacher Hill? Do they know anything about Captain Allinger O'Connor? Do they know anything about Teacher McField? Do they know anything about Dr. Roy McTaggart? Do they know anything about Captain Walton? Do they know anything about Harry McCoy, who was one of the most decorated men in the Commonwealth? Do they know anything about Rudolph McLaughlin? Did they know about Willa Farrington and O.L. Panton? Did they know anything about your mother, Mrs. Myrtle, who was an educator? Did they know anything about Miss Glida? Do they know anything about all of those people who took it upon themselves to put privately to educate people outside of the government education system?
Okay, we reached the top of the hour. Time for 8 o'clock news, folks. Please stay tuned for the record with Dr. Steve Macfield, and joining us also will be the Honorable Mayor Lawrence after the 8 o'clock news. So don't change that dial. Stay right there.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
And the time by Price Right is 8 o'clock.
Access to information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A backpack full of goodies for the new school year. Radio Cayman's Keely Ebanks reports.
Rotary Sunrise recently donated 30 backpacks filled with school supplies, 15 for primary and high school each. According to a press release, the aim is to ensure that the last thing students have to worry about is whether they have notebooks or a pencil, allowing them to focus on their education. It's the second year for the Back to School initiative, in which the club was able to provide the bags to the Department of Children and Family Services. Co-Director of Community Service, Jenna Mungal, says they hope to continue supporting the families of Cayman each year. Reporting for Radio Cayman News, I'm Keely Ebanks.
The National Gallery is hosting a special tea and tour event for seniors.
This event is free thanks to support from EY and is part of the gallery's wider mission to make art accessible to everyone in our community.
Jessica Ebanks with the National Gallery promises a fantastic event for local seniors.
The event will begin with the tour of our new exhibition, Tropical Visions, Landscape Painting from the National Collection, with the chance to share stories and memories inspired by the artwork. Following the tour, we'll serve tea, sandwiches, and pastries in our auditorium. This event is open to all seniors and is a wonderful way to socialize and view some of our beautiful local artwork.
Seniors Tour and Tea Party is from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on Friday. You're encouraged to RSVP by calling 945-8111. Transportation assistance can be arranged if requested. And more than 100 guests enjoy an evening with His Excellency the Governor to celebrate the 6th annual Cayman Connection UK reception. Every year, CCUK's reception brings together Caymanian students who are studying in the UK and those who are preparing to go to the UK for the first time. It also welcomes those who are sponsoring scholarships for the students abroad and, in addition, provides a platform for students to network with potential employers. Alanis Linward is a former UK student.
CCUK has been great with regards to experience. I got to meet a lot of Caymanian students, not only in London where I was studying, but all over the UK. There's also the opportunity to meet people outside of the student life, people that are friends of Cayman as well, and you have a great connection and you never feel like you're by yourself in the UK.
In his remarks, His Excellency the Governor Martin Roper noted Cayman Connection UK does a, quote, excellent job supporting Caymanian students while studying in the UK, and explains education is important for nurturing UK-Cayman links.
I think links between Cayman and the UK, particularly in education, we've got the English curriculum being rolled out in schools in Cayman in September, and then university links, having more and more Caymanian students going to the UK, something that I really want to promote.
Audio there courtesy of CIG TV. For more information, check out CaymanConnections.org. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. The outgoing head of Sudan's military council, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has been sworn in as head of a new body which will oversee Sudan's transition to democracy. He'll be in charge of the Sovereign Council for the first 21 months. A civilian will then take over until elections, planned for 2022. President Maduro has confirmed that senior Venezuelan officials have been talking to members of the Trump administration. Mr. Maduro said the talks have been going on for months with his permission. It comes after media reports suggested that a powerful government figure had been negotiating Mr. Maduro's removal from office with Washington. China has threatened to impose sanctions on U.S. companies involved in a planned U.S. arms sale to Taiwan. Reiterating Beijing's opposition to such a deal, the Foreign Ministry spokesman said China would take all necessary measures to safeguard its interests. The biggest online retailer in the world, China's Alibaba, has reportedly postponed plans to raise billions of dollars on Hong Kong's financial markets due to concerns over instability in the territory after weeks of mass protests. Protests in Indonesia's easternmost provinces have continued for a third day, despite calls for calm by the President Joko Widodo. In the latest unrest, around 1,000 people took to the streets of Timika City in Papua Province, holding banners and shouting, "We are not monkeys." BBC News.
Access. Information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Wednesday, August 21 at 4 p.m. You are invited to the grand opening of the new Superior Auto Apprenticeship Center on Seymour Drive. New opportunity, new beginnings, new home for Caymanian youth seeking career training and certification in high-demand trades like automotive repairs, air conditioning, refrigeration, plumbing, electrical, metal fabrication, and more. Come witness, celebrate the cutting of the ribbon. At 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoon, August 21, another milestone. The Superior Auto Apprenticeship Center, a not-for-profit program successfully training and creating employment alignment since 2010. Purpose and fulfillment.
The time to invest in Cayman Brac is now. Contact Paradise Realty to invest in your future today at 925-7275 or email info@paradiserealtycyb.com.
The best back to school sale is now at Reflections. Buy one, get one half price on all back to school shoes. Over 100 styles of your favorite brands, Nike, Reebok, and more. Back to school savings on shoes for toddlers, children, teens, and adults. Buy one pair, get the second pair half price. Or buy one pair of shoes and get a backpack half priced. The best back to school sale at Reflections, now located on Shedden Road, across from Napa Auto Parts, beside Mango Tree. Reflections.
Wait, and I hear that?
Yeah, fam, what that is? And where it coming from?
I don't know, you know.
Wait a minute, and I hear we having some UCCI Steel Pan students on?
Ray, I want to see this.
Yeah, man, this gonna be lit. Oh, how this gonna be lit? We gonna be having some gospel up in here.
Who gonna be here preaching us with some gospel? Cause man, I needed that for 6. See results?
J-Prophet. We will be having J-Prophet on as well.
So many change for the money life and the city lights, yeah.
The word of the week is melanin. M-E-L-A-N-I-N. It is a noun that means a dark brown, black pigment occurring in the hair and skin of people and animals.
You can join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman 89.9 FM. And for Youth Flex, a program for all people, by young people. Youth Flex, morning time.
A pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees. Relative humidity is 86%. Barometric pressure 29.97 inches and rising. The wind is out of the east at 6 knots. Overnight low temperature was 74 degrees. Synopsis indicate light to moderate winds and seas expected over the Cayman area for the next 24 hours due to a slack pressure gradient over the northwest Caribbean. Some showers will linger over the area this morning, decreasing thereafter as a tropical wave moves out of the area. Radar images show scattered showers around the Cayman area moving towards the northwest. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and thunder, and temperatures will be in the low 80s today. Winds will be east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Forecast for tonight calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers. Temperatures falling to the upper 70s tonight. Your winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Today's high tide will occur this afternoon at 1:44, low tide tonight at 7:48. Sunset 6:48, and the sun will rise tomorrow morning at 9 minutes after 6. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Friday morning.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning. Time for the traffic report. On Shamrock Road and then for Pearson Highway, steady traffic but flowing. Coming from the West Bay four-way stop, traffic moving light to moderate, and traffic moving smoothly on Godfrey Nixon Way. Eastern Avenue, traffic also moving pretty good. On Huldah Avenue, traffic is moderate as well as on Thomas Russell Way. And coming from the Butterfield roundabout, heading towards the Industrial Park area, traffic flowing moderately on North Sound Road. And on Crew Road, traffic is moderate in some sections and steady in other sections. That's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. If you've seen accidents or incidents on Cayman's roads, give us a call here at Radio Cayman, 949-6990.
The cure for the summer blues is sending your kids back to school with a backpack full of school supplies. During August, for every Subway Fresh Value meal purchased, enter your name, number, and email on the entry form for a chance to win one of 7 backpacks filled with school supplies from Subway. The Back to School giveaway at Subway. Not valid at the Airport Departure Lounge. Eat happy. Eat fresh. Subway.
But there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Hey, are those new glasses on Will?
Yeah, we went to Optical Outlook. Wham, bam, easy exam. Finally, an exam he could pass. And we had the glasses the next day. Easiest part of our back-to-school shopping for sure.
Book your child's eye exam today at Optical Outlook. Call 746-2020. Get half off a complete pair of glasses with any student's eye exam now until August 31st. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook, located in Caymanian Village.
Terms and conditions apply.
Sailing the high seas.
That's the theme for this year's Miss Teen pageant.
The 39th annual Miss Teen Cayman Islands pageant will be held at the Lions Community Center on Saturday, August 24th. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Showtime is at 7 p.m.
Tickets are available at Funky Tangs, Lorna's Rubis, The Finishing Touch, Sings Roadie Shop, and Event Pro.
Premium seating is $40 pre-sold, $50 at the gate. General admission is $25 pre-sold, $30 at the gate. Children ages 6 to 12, $15 pre-sold, $20 at the gate. Thanks to our sponsors, Digicel, Marshall's Rent-A-Car, Granville House, CUC,
Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, Agriculture and Lands, The Finishing Touch, Rubis, King Sports Center, Eclipse Hair Design and Day Spa,
Island Embroidery, Margaritaville Beach Resort, and Radio Cayman.
See you at the Lions Center on Saturday, August 24th.
The Miss Teen 2019 pageant, we are sailing the high seas.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio, we have been joined by the Honorable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of our Legislative Assembly. And I will put her in the category of resident expert on education in the Cayman Islands, educational history of the Cayman Islands as well. She doesn't need any preparation. She doesn't need to bring any papers. She has it all up there in the cranium, all held there based on her experiences as well. And I want to remind you that this conversation about education today was Dr. Steve Macfield was inspired by the presentation and in particular what Minister, the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly had to say at the educational professionals professional welcome event that took place on Monday and was carried live by Radio Cayman. So before I say any more in that regard, before we say any more, I want to welcome the Honorable Mary Lawrence. Good morning, Madam Speaker. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. For the Record. I heard Steve call you.
What you title?
I did not know what the topic was going to be this morning, so I don't have
everything was short notice. Yeah.
My documents with me, as you know, he called me last night. But Dr. Macfield was saying when I was coming in, he was talking about the early start of education and the way that it was so difficult for children, particularly children of color, as we call them, to have an opportunity to even get inside of a schoolroom door. You know, my mother-in-law told me she went and she lived right next door to the mission house, and she went to school for 3 weeks. But she was a highly literate woman. She read everything. She was versed in politics in Cayman. She was versed in politics in the States. Wherever anything happened, she read it and she knew it. And, I mean, my father, I know, went to school 6 weeks, and he was bilingual. He could go abroad and manage businesses in 2 languages, you know. So education then was what I call real education, because we had teachers who were really interested in making sure their students learn. And the incident that Dr. Macfield is speaking about with Andrew Malcolm, they gave him a very hard time for wanting to teach children of color. And not just children of color, but poor children was what they really called them. Because, there were a lot of people here. And like I said before on this show, we had three kinds in Boddentown, poor, poor, and poorest.
Yes.
And so we had people there who really had no means whatsoever. And to come up with a threepence or a sixpence every week was, especially when you had big families, like my grandmother did 11 children, it was not an easy task to come up with money for that. But he tried to include these children, and there was a big hoo-ha about it, and they made his life very difficult. And eventually he went back, and the people in the community signed a petition. And I'm so sorry I didn't know this was going to be, because I do have the petition sitting at home. And it's signed with X's. Most of the signatures are X's. Their name is written in, and their signature is there. But, we don't pay enough attention to what is going on around us, because that petition is included in that series of books that Mrs. Heather McLaughlin prepared from the archives, the 3 books on the history of Cayman.
Okay.
And one of them has the history of music, and one of them has all the petitions and stuff, and then the other one deals with the history itself, and the record of the 10 sales and all that kind of stuff. But we don't use any of these things in the school. They're there. Like I've said here on the show before, if a teacher wants to teach, they will find the material to teach with.
Well, the minister now has given assurances that this will be put in the schools now.
Well, she needs to put it in schools. The only place you are going to see the pictures of the 9 national heroes is if you come to Boddentown. We have them on the wall of our Heritage House. You won't see them again until you go to Heroes Day, and they're on the banners hung in front of the platform, but nobody can see from where you're sitting. You have to actually go by it to see it. But we have one of the you mentioned when it came in here about the Premier's father.
Yes.
The Premier grandfather was one of the premier teachers in this country. In fact, he was one of the people who pioneered education law.
Okay.
And he was teaching in Boddentown. He had a school in Boddentown. He came back to the island. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. He came back. His father's Seventh-day Adventist. He came back to the island, and he started a little school in Boddentown. In fact, he married 2 women from Boddentown, first one and then the other one, sisters. And he started to fight to see if he could get government involved in education. And eventually, they said, well, they would give him a little bit of funds, to kind of supplement the private stuff he was doing. But it wasn't enough. And sooner, after a while, he went back to East End. But he was one of the pioneers of the education law in 1920.
Okay. If I may, I want to go back to Dr. McField's opening remarks. And there's a scholarly paper that was written, and I have located this, and it is entitled Educational Developments in the British West Indies, Historical Overview. And Dr. McField, you mentioned, it talks about early developments in formal education, and it says that the British model of formal education within the Caribbean dates back to the 1834 Emancipation Act, which provided the first opportunity for mass schooling within the region for a population comprised largely of ex-slaves. The Emancipation Act provided for the education of ex-slaves within the British colonies and was backed by financial support from the imperial government and through the Negro Education Grant. And I believe I saw some other place, it's not in this actual document, but the grant was £30,000 per year for 5 years. So this paper goes on to say that the Negro Education Grant was endowed by an inheritance left by Lady Michael in 1690. Lady Michael had willed her wealth to her nephew with the precondition that he married one of his cousins. Alternatively, the inheritance would be used for the redemption of Christians captured and enslaved by Barbary pirates. The nephew in question never married his cousin, and in 1834, Thomas Fowell Buxton, and other abolitionists convincingly argued that the Micro inheritance should be used for the purpose of Negro education. During the first 2 years, the Negro Education Grant was issued to religious groups solely for the construction of schools. The imperial government contributed to paying 2/3 of the building costs, while the religious groups contributed 1/3. During the time of the Negro Education Grant, the Micro Charter had provided more educational funding than any other religious groups and had opened 4 normal schools for the training of native teachers as well. I guess that's hence we end up with Micro, training college as well. And then it goes on to say, prior to emancipation, opportunities for the education of African slaves within the British West Indies were practically non-existent, and where they did exist were met with harsh opposition from plantation and slave owners. We talk about that right here in Cayman as well. It says the majority of white population who could afford it sent their sons to be educated in England, as there was no equivalent of good English grammar schools education to be had in the West Indies. For the less wealthy whites, the demand for grammar school education was met in part by planters and merchants, primarily in Jamaica and Barbados, who endowed local schools on these particular islands. The most noteworthy donor was Christopher Codrington of Barbados, who bequeathed his estate to provide fiscal support for the Codrington Grammar School for boys in Barbados. The school was founded in 1743 and opened in 1745 as well. So that's part of some of the history. Any comments on that?
Well, we evolved at a much slower pace than anyone else when it comes to education. We started off, you talked about Micro. The first trained Caymanian graduate of Micro College was Jarrett Wood from Bodden Town. And he came back here to teach. He set up a little school, but it was very difficult. You couldn't live on the £6 a week that people were paying you, and the little bit of support that the church could give you. He became a justice of the peace while he was here. But eventually he went back to Jamaica, and there he rose up through the education ranks to become the island-wide inspector for the island of Jamaica.
Wow.
And when he died, the Gleaner newspaper carried his life story, devoted a full page of the newspaper to carrying his life story and telling how he had evolved into this high position that he held. Education was a very prominent thing in the island of Jamaica at that time. Unfortunately, we didn't have that kind of support here from government. Mm-hmm. Government never thought it necessary to educate. I remember Mr. Warren telling me that when they proposed to build a prison in Cayman, he said, don't build a prison, build a university. Yes. And they said, no, we had 12 prisoners up in Jamaica we needed to bring back. And so they built the prison, and by the time they got the prisoners here, the prison was full. And they started adding and adding and adding. And you know how many millions of dollars we spend each year to maintain that prison, 200 plus people in it. And in the community, we can't find the money to finish the high school started 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. We have our whole viewpoint on education was skewed. It wasn't considered necessary. That we left it to the churches. Even after the Education Act, we left it to the churches. Government never built schools. They used the church buildings. You know how long the building out on the waterfront in front of Elmsford Church was used to house Georgetown School
and Dobson Hall as well.
And Dobson Hall. Yes. It was. They were never buildings specifically built for schools.
My mother taught under a tree. So did
Miss
Rachel Forbes.
That's right.
I learned under the tree. I learned under the tree.
And what about one of the early educators too, Smiley Conley, who started a private school?
Yes, And
he was a relative of Mr. Warren Connor from East End.
There were several of the Conleys that were involved in education from time to time, but to get the government to support it was another thing. Mm-hmm. They did not want to put money into education because they said they were going to have to raise taxes to do it, and they were not prepared to pay any more in taxes, and education was the thing that fell by the wayside. I mean, all through the history, you read that. And then when we started, after the Cayman High School, we started Cayman High School when the Presbyterian Church started Cayman High School, and don't forget the Church of God actually started secondary education here before anyone else. They started it was muted in 1940 and started in 1941, and they used their church buildings for that again. When the Presbyterians came along and said that they wanted to start a school, the government gave them for peppercorn rental the buildings behind the library, which we had called the old naval base, and that's where the school was housed. But the ordinary child didn't get to go there. Eventually, after it had been going on for a while, and it started in 1948, I think it was.
Yes.
And by the time it got to 1952, 1951, government gave the first scholarships. They gave 2 to people who passed the Jamaica local first-year exam. Buddentown got both of those scholarships.
You were the recipient of one of those scholarships?
The second year, they gave 2 more, and I was one of the recipients. And the third year, they gave 2 more. But then they stopped. And the thing with giving the scholarships was, it's a 5-year program, Form 1 through Form 5. And then you took the senior Cambridge exam. But government only gave the scholarship for 4 years. So you started in second form. And you had never done algebra and geometry and Spanish and all those things that the other children already had a year of. And you were told, I was told, you're going to have to figure out how to get that in on your own because we don't have time to go back and cover all that ground with you again. So, you had to perform, because if you didn't perform, you're going to lose a little scholarship that you had. And the scholarship was worth £5. Can you believe that?
That was a lot of money those days, too.
Yeah, yes. But it was, they only gave it, like I said, for 4 years.
Yes.
And after that, then the government decided that they were going to take over the high school. And they moved the campus up to Walker's Road. For the first time, they built a school. They built the campus up on Walker's Road. In fact, they built Walker's Road to put the school there. And, there's a lot of talk about building this road through the swamp and putting the school in the swamp and all that good stuff. But they bought so much land in that area. The community college, what was George Hicks High School, which is now the present high school, is and all that, the grounds there, the Truman Bodden space, playground, and all the grounds behind that, the John Gray School that's there now, all of that was bought at one time. And land, I guess, I think they were very insightful when they bought it. But when they built the school, it was a paying school. And the only way you could get into it, they gave 40 scholarships a year. If you passed the 11-plus exam, which was the standard for getting in, 20 people who got the top grades, they got a place free. The next 10 got a place half price. And the last 10, you had to pay. You just got the place. Well, that was like telling you that...
Yes.
Here's the car, but we will give you the key to drive it.
Okay, we have to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. When we return, the conversation with Dr. Steve Macfield and the Honorable Mary Lawrence will continue.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
Kind of like one surgery fits all. You're saying, that's not necessary. That's not going to be the case with me. That's good to hear.
For the Health of It is proudly brought to you by
Eating Clean. Wake back up to quality foods with eatingclean.com. That's clean with a K. EATINGKLEAN.com.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning the Honorable Mary Lawrence and also with us Dr. Steve Macfield. We're talking about education in the Cayman Islands, and this conversation was basically inspired by Dr. Macfield's interest in the teachers, the conference. I call it a conference, but it was actually welcome. It was actually the education professional welcome event that took place on Monday. Want to talk about...
First, before we talk about that, can I just ask my colleague, Honorable Mayor Lawrence, do you think that we will be able to get a world-class education structure here, as the minister states that she wants to have? That's her vision?
Yeah, that's what I was going to transition right into that, but you beat me to it.
You can get a world-class education here if you get the teachers. The basic tool in any classroom, the basic, whether you call it a tool or whether you call it the basic component in any classroom is the teacher. You get a good teacher who's interested in the child, who spends time on the child, who knows the child, knows his weaknesses, knows his strengths, and it doesn't matter. My daughter teaches in Memphis, Tennessee, classes of 35. And they're all successful at the end of a school year. You just have to put the effort into it to get it done. And we lost that. I blame us for that because we split the system up to begin with. When we decided that we, instead of concentrating on putting in early childhood education and developing the community college, we decided we're going to put the middle school in. And the story behind the middle school, and you can go to the records of the Legislative Assembly, the story behind the middle school was that school was going to fill the gap between the primary school and the high school, and children who hadn't learned in the primary school and who couldn't read in the primary school would learn how to do it in the middle school, and then they would go to the high school. That was the story that was put forward on the floor of the assembly. I got in big trouble for writing my opinions on that in the Nor'Wester magazine. I was called communist. I wanted to take over people's children and do for them all these things that, government should not be doing for children. But the fact of the matter was, when we split the system then, we lost a lot of ground because there was no curriculum from primary to middle to high, no related curriculum. Everybody was doing their own little thing. They did what they wanted in the primary school. When they got to high school, the middle school, and they reaped the disaster that was coming forward, I taught in the middle school, and the first year I was there, 6 to 8% of the children coming in were reading below second grade level.
Okay, well,
and that's where we lost our ground.
Okay, here's the question then. Doc.
And then we split all these exams. We're going to do this exam. We're going to do that. And we're going to do the next thing. Every wind of doctrine that blew in our direction, we followed it.
Okay. Which brings me to my question. And earlier, before we went on the show, you were talking about the Constitution, and I want you to, share with the audience what you said about that. And, you just basically have the shell there in terms of what it said. But the question that I want to ask the both of you is then talking about the ups and downs, the changes as far as education is concerned. Should we really have the future of educating our children in the hands of politicians? Should it be in the hands of politicians, since it is subject to so many whims and fancies, so many changes? Should we really have it in the hands of politicians? So let's go to the Constitution first and what the Constitution says about education.
The Constitution basically only sets out of the primary framework. It says government shall seek reasonably to, and that's Section 20 of the Constitution says, government shall seek reasonably to achieve the progressive realization within available resources of providing every child with primary and secondary education, which shall subject to be free. And every person who is the parent of a legal guardian or legal guardian of a child shall be entitled to have his or her child of whatever age educated at his or her own expense, unless a law otherwise provides, in a private school, that is to say, a school other than one established by a public authority, and in such a school to ensure the religious and moral education of his or her child in accordance with his or her own convictions. And then it says, nothing contained in any law or done under its authority shall be held to convene Section 3 to the extent that it is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, and to the extent that the law makes provisions requiring private schools as a condition of their being allowed to operate, and on terms no more onerous than applicable to schools established by a public authority to satisfy. And this is the crusher. Such minimum educational standards, including standards relating to the qualifications of teaching staff and other staff as may be prescribed by or under any law, and such minimum standards imposed in the interest of public order, public morality, or public health as may be so prescribed. So the Constitution is only talking about the minimum standards. It doesn't talk about the world-class education like the minister wants to put into place. It only is the bare minimum. It's only the bare framework for an education system, but it doesn't guarantee anything more than that.
Okay. Now, in your interpretation of that section, does it mean that the government must provide it, or the government should provide the framework and the resources for education? Because that is one of the big issues in
but it doesn't say
United
shall.
States.
It doesn't say it says shall. It says shall.
But it speaks to government schools.
Seek.
But
reasonably.
But read a little further on there. It seems to make a distinction between government schools provided by government and schools provided by the private sector,
right.
which almost seems to me to say that government must provide, must be involved in the government schools. And my question would be, to what extent? Does it mean you provide the infrastructure for it and you hand it over to someone else? Because that's what we're talking about now, having education councils and district councils to run education as opposed to it being done by central government.
Well, the problem with us is that we don't trust our own people.
Yes.
We don't trust our own people. Mm-hmm. We took the University College, and I'm going to use that now, and we gave it to someone whose background we did not check, whose credentials we did not check, and we let him run it into the ground, financially and academically. Then we called in a Caymanian to fix it. I had looked forward in all those years that Bawden was there, that there was going to be a Caymanian coming up that would step into the position when he decided to retire. But that didn't happen. The heads of all our schools in this island, with the exception of the Red Bay School, is a non-Caymanian. And you might say that I am not prejudiced against someone. I was taught by people who were non-Caymanians. I was taught in in the all-age school in Bawden Town, and I credit the headmaster there with the education that I have, because he gave me a broad-based education there to go to high school to survive among all the rich people that was there, and the confidence in myself to do this. But when you take all your eggs and you put them in one basket, which is what we've done, we don't encourage, and I say this because I have seen it happen again this year, we do not encourage Caymanians to take up, that we don't even offer them the position. And when they apply for it, we don't give it to them. And so we are looking at a situation where we are placing our future, the future of this island, in the hands of people that we're bringing here and paying a salary to. And unless there is somebody who's monitoring that almost on a daily basis, you are not going to get the results you want.
Well, I must say, and I want to thank you for commenting and raising the issue of the University College of the Cayman Islands, because under the leadership of Mr. Roy Bawden, that institution played a prominent role. It was always highlighted. He was always out there championing it on the talk shows, having various lectures taking place there and stuff like that. I'm not hearing a whole lot of that these days about the college now. Sometimes you may say, well, they're quiet, but they're doing things in the background. I'm not sure of that, but I must say that Mr. Roy Bawden brought that to prominence and kept it in the limelight at all points in time. And I'm not hearing a whole lot about the University College of the Cayman Islands these days.
A university college should not be in the background. It should be in the foreground.
It's the driving force in the community.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's the driving force in the community.
And I noticed that they, since he's left, they haven't. Not that to my knowledge, maybe I'm subject to contradiction, but they have not asked any local people to come there, even to speak to their students or to lecture or to give a talk or anything. We used to do that before. We would go there and we would talk to students, and he would invite us. And then I remember going to several lectures with the civil servants at the Civil Servants College, talking to the civil servants about the structure of government and the Cayman Islands and our experience being civil servants in the government and things like that. They don't call us anymore to ask us to do that. And it's like the Honourable Mayor Lawrence have said, we sort of never encourage education, and we never encourage education among our people. And in fact, when you look at the history of education, several of the prominent members in the government in the old days, in the Western days, refused to even vote money for a school, and say that the only education that we needed was enough education, and the men needed was enough education to be able to learn how to read and write and work on a ship. But outside of that, they didn't need any more education.
They didn't think women needed it at all.
Yeah. We're a little bit past our commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Have you seen the latest? Cayman has been ranked the most expensive place to live. It's time to buy smart. It's time to buy Ropers. Find everything for your home and kitchen at low prices at Ropers. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Clean up your spending with Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511. Ropers Janitorial also offers complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time. Ropers Janitorial, 949-2511.
Gym tonight?
I have another test today.
Wow, for somebody who isn't in school, you've had a lot of tests this week.
Well, Vamp Motors is giving out fresh baked cookies to customers who test drive SUVs this month. And since I haven't decided what to buy, I'm just test driving each one to see what I like best.
You better test drive that to the gym and back, especially with all those free cookies you're getting from Vamped.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this August at Vamped Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vamp's summer SUV sale. Now through the end of August. That's every SUV in stock on sale. Save up to $4,400 or put the savings towards upgrading your vehicle. Sweeten the deal with Vamped Motors, Walkers Road.
At Logic, we make things better for our customers. It's why we're offering free Boost Wi-Fi. With Boost, you get improved Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere in your home, so there's no more dead zones. The only people we're not making this better for is parents. Because now with seamless Wi-Fi in every room in your home, go to your room isn't really the punishment it used to be. Sorry about that. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, we have the Honorable Mary Lawrence and Dr. Steve McFeel talking about education in the Cayman Islands. We gave you an overview of the history of education, public education in the Cayman Islands. And I just want to share one more article with you. This one was written in the Caymanian Compass on the 7th of March 2013 by Stuart Wilson, a young man by the name of Stuart Wilson, who I believe worked here at Radio Cayman as well. He's a musician, a composer, a writer now as well. And says he wrote then the history, and some of this may be repeating, but I just want to demonstrate, the level of information that we have on this. Because when you Google the history of education in the Cayman Islands, I can't find a publication as such. And we'll talk about that later on because we know that there have been offers, to write that. But when you Google it, you're not able to find a publication as such, but you will find articles on it. And this one says that the history of public education in the Cayman Islands has been one that highlights the travel of early settlers in the islands. Churches played an important part of education in the early development of the islands. Between 1800 and 1840, the Micro Charter established 2 schools on Grand Cayman. The first trained Cayman In schoolmaster was John Jarrett Wood, who started a school in Bordentown in 1844, like you heard the Honorable Mayor Lawrence say. It was not until somewhere between 1880 and 1900 that teachers Frederick Simpson and James Panton arrived from Jamaica, and a gentleman by the name of Henry Hewitt started a school on Cayman Brac. In 1902, the first Education Act was passed, allowing small grants to private schools, and the Education Board was also established. A new Education Act specifying compulsory education for children ages 6 to 14 was introduced. It was revised in 1920 for ages 7 to 14. Not long after, in 1921, 2 primary schools were opened in Cayman Brac. During the 1940s, churches developed secondary educational facilities, and in 1950, a secondary modern school, 1959, a secondary modern school was set up for vocational training in commercial and technical subjects. In 1964, British-style common entrance examinations were introduced. This created a dual school system. The top 40 students were selected to go to the Cayman High School, and the rest went to the secondary modern school. That same year marked the CI government's taking control of the Cayman High School and renaming it the Cayman Islands High School. Cayman Brac Secondary Modern School was established in 1967. During the 1970s, government-sponsored tertiary education began with the opening of the Community College. The International College of the Cayman Islands, a private institution, also came online in the 1970s. So that was Stuart's.
That story about the secondary modern was a dumping ground for kids that did not get into the high school system.
Yes,
that's what it was.
Yes.
And when you were, and I've heard the present Speaker of the House say this often, when he was coming up to his 14th birthday, they told his mother she was going to have to keep him home because he needed space for someone else. There was no curriculum. I worked there. I know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. There was no curriculum. We struggled to put together curriculum for subjects that we were teaching and find textbooks to work with it because nobody was provided. It was down on Eastern Avenue in what was called the swamp then, because Eastern Avenue is people now with people in buildings, but back then that was always there, was that school, and it was as though they had dumped it there and forgotten that it existed.
Okay, so how do we get to that world-class
and then we came back
when
and I'll credit Mr. Benson with this. He started comprehensive education. When he became the minister for the member for education, he merged the 2 schools and put them all in one place. But you see, every time we have a political change, we change the system.
Yes.
And
hence my question: do we really need to leave it in the hands of politicians?
Well, we can set up an authority to do it.
Yes.
Like we do for the hospital, and we do for the airport, and we do for other things, and make sure that somebody who knows what they're doing is there to operate it and to make sure that the system works. But one of the things that we lack here more than anything else is to inspire our people. Dr. McField spoke about that just, and I want to say something. I went to Trinidad when I was a Speaker of the House.
Come a little closer to the mic.
And I was... Sorry. I went to Trinidad.
I think you're in the speaker's chair now, right?
No, I used to have to sit up real straight because it was a man's chair, and I couldn't sit back because it was too deep for me to sit in, and I had the garbage can, and I put my foot on because I couldn't reach the floor. But, no, when I went there, one of the things that I was handed was a little box, and in that box were little booklets of the important people in Trinidad's history. And I think about it often, that we do not promote our people. We have the 9 national heroes, and I've written a life story, I think, about it on every single one of them at some time or other in my writing career. But we've never put that together to say that children should have them, little booklets that they could take home and read. They could buy and read. Even things like pictures. When there's a great turmoil in Hong Kong at the present time, I was there the week before they handed it over to the Chinese. And one of the things they had in their galleries and everywhere else were beautiful, beautiful envelopes. I mean, absolute fantastic paper. And inside of those envelopes were pictures of old Hong Kong. And you bought the package. Now, the archives, they tried that. They have 2 packages of pictures that they have done in envelopes. But how many people know about it?
Yes, yeah.
You know, how many people know about the 3 books that I'm talking about of Cayman history that Heather McLaughlin put together? How many people know that she put together Cayman Heroes? She put together how to do the thatch rope. She put together how to write a newspaper. All of this came out of the archives to the education system. And they were left in boxes and dumped when everybody figured they were taking up too much space, they were never put in the classroom and used. And, you know, this is, when we talk about why we don't know who we are, that's one of the reasons. But the other thing is that when we're going to talk about world-class education, and now we're going with the British subject thing all the way, which is what we had originally. We're back to the starting point because we had the senior Cambridge many, many years ago. And we're back to that point again. But what are we doing? What are we going to do to ensure that, I've heard the complaints already, we got to be retrained to use books and textbooks, really? You know why? Because they make the teacher accountable. When your child has a textbook, the parents know if they've read chapter so-and-so. And when they have the workbook, they know if page so-and-so has been worked and has been graded because they're taking the book and the parents are seeing it. We put all of that out of the system here some years ago and decided we didn't need textbooks. Children could learn to read without textbooks. Children could learn, they didn't need to write grammatically correct sentences and grammatically and make reasoned reports. You know, none of this was necessary anymore. It was going to drop down out of the sky, fall in our little brains, and everybody was going to be happy with the result. Well, we got the result. We're choking on it right now because in the Cayman Islands, that is the first thing they throw at you. You don't have an education. And you don't have and if you say that you have it, they say you don't have an experience to go with that. Yes. And before I go any further, I want to congratulate the Miss Cayman Universe, Miss Universe Cayman, A. Bodden Towner.
Yes.
Carrying the name of Bodden.
Yes.
Highly educated young woman.
Yes.
And say that not only are we so very proud of her in Bodden Town, but she's going to have our full support in her reign because it is time that our people who excel, not only is she beautiful, but she excelled in the subjects that she chose, in the areas of education she chose. She's 24 and she has 2 degrees already. And they're degrees in subjects that biochemistry and regenerative medicine, highly skilled areas. And we need to applaud our young people when they do those things.
Exactly.
And you know what? What I found surprising, all the stuff that was said about her, nothing was said about her parents.
Exactly.
Who dedicated their whole life to creating this beautiful girl and educating her and so that she could be on the stage.
Okay. We've gone beyond the 9 o'clock hour, but it was worth it in this particular case. Yes. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after headline news at 9 o'clock.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
Runners and walkers are invited to join in the effort to save Cayman's coral reefs by signing up to be a part of the Central Caribbean Marine Institute's Reef Relief Squad at the Intertrust Cayman Islands Marathon. To register and learn more about the Reef Relief Squad, email events@reefresearch.org. U.S. President Donald Trump has canceled a state visit to Denmark after the nation's prime minister said Greenland was not for sale to the U.S. The president was scheduled to visit on September 2nd at the invitation of Denmark's Queen. Then last week, Mr. Trump suggested the U.S. was interested in buying Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory. The Danish prime minister described the suggestion as, quote, absurd, and said she hoped Mr. Trump was not being serious. And Brazil's Amazon rainforest has seen a record number of fires this year. The National Institute for Space Research said its satellite data showed an 84% increase on the same period last year. It comes weeks after President Bolsonaro sacked the head of the agency amid a row over deforestation data. The largest rainforest in the world, the Amazon is a vital carbon store that slows down the pace of global warming. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking about education in the Cayman Islands, inspired by a speech made by the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, Minister responsible for education as well as other subjects. That address was made on Monday, and it spoke about the Cayman Islands educational system and becoming a world-class education system as well. What we have done so far is that we've taken you through the history of education in the Cayman Islands, starting with in the 1834 around emancipation and onwards from there. And we want to now, talk about the current situation. How do we go about? How can we achieve a world-class education system in the Cayman Islands? We want to talk about also about some of the challenges that people face. Madam Speaker, you spoke earlier about the importance of teachers and having quality teachers and the right teachers. But in addition to that, the support that has to come from families, and you spoke about, Irene, Miss Cayman, and the support that she received. But we're seeing more and more single families in the Cayman Islands, either through
more than 50% of
divorce or otherwise.
More than 50% of Boddington Primary School is single parents.
Yeah. And families facing challenges in terms of children going to school hungry, having to scramble to get sufficient money for uniforms and all of those other things associated with it, the challenges that they face. And then children not only being educated in the schools, but that education continuing at home in terms of homework and everything else. And in the absence of that, do we have proper structures in place that will help a child who is reaching those challenges? I know some people who have moved their children from government schools to private schools because they feel that irrespective of the success of that student, that they're moved on to another grade, even if they're not ready to be moved on, and they feel that at least in private schools, they may be held back if they haven't achieved that level to move on to another grade.
Well, we have a bigger thing than that going on in this community now, one that I find alarming, and that is that teachers are being allowed to start what they call special schools or tutoring schools or whatever they want to call them. We're sprouting up all over the place. Everywhere you look, there's a little corner and there's a shingle saying that this is going to do this for you. Mm-hmm. And the fees are horrendous. They start like $1,300, $1,500. They're going to teach your child what he didn't learn somewhere else. But the fact of the matter is that within the school system, we should have the backup programs to deal with children. And you talked about parents. Years ago, they had the PTA. Then they changed that to Home School Association. Home School Association is like that took the mouth of the parents out of the school. And Home School Associations became, over the years, like a fundraising thing to supply more money for the schools, which nobody knew where it was going or what was being spent on. And instead of having a PTA where parents could come and ask questions, and parents could, I mean, they were single parents when years ago in Cayman, but they made time for these things because they felt they were going to have a voice, they were going to be heard, but that's not happening anymore. Parents don't have a voice in education, and that's a serious thing. When children go, the system we have now that she's going to change, she says, is where they'll give a kindergarten child or a first grade child a project. Well, the child goes home and says, I got a project. And the parent says, okay. And they go on the computer and they said, okay, we'll take this little picture out. We'll take the little piece of paper writing out. And they put it down on a piece of paper and they send it back to school and the child has done the project. Child didn't read it and the child don't even know what the project is about. Doesn't understand it. But this is one way of not involving parents directly in the system. And it is one way of teachers not having to do the background work that they need to do. And that is a failing in the schools. Teachers are not preparing. And I know there's going to be a big backlash from this, but teachers are not preparing to teach. And I'm not even just talking about Cayman history right now. There is no point in you going to a machine and running off 100 copies of something that you found somewhere in some book. And by the time you get to the 40th copy, the print is so faded you can hardly understand it, and give it to the child to work with.
Okay, we have one caller.
What's happening?
We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, O.C.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm okay, and morning to your guest. I'm not calling in on a butcher subject. I'm calling in to use your show as to announce or to remind people of my back-to-school drive, annual back-to-school drive.
Okay, well that fits into this topic.
Yes, which is going ongoing this week for my constituency of West Bay West. This week, next week, I will include all others as I've normally done, but I have to try to get to the people in West Bay West and to remind them that their office is on Reverend Blackman Road between the clinic and Liberty's Restaurant on a building that is called the Lucinda Ebanks Building. I have moved from West Bay Central to that area, and I want to remind people that we have all the usual back-to-school supplies, which is books, which is pencils, bags, school bags, all the usual supplies that children need from primary to high school.
Do they need any sort of identification or proof of child being in school or anything?
No, we don't do that. They are trying to identify, and we're saying that look, this week is for West Bay West, and next week others can join in because people come from all around, and not because the district is 4 constituencies that we don't give. We give to everybody.
Okay.
But we want to get to our people, our students, our children, and particularly those that is in much need. And so that is ongoing this week until 7:30 in the evening, and then next week again we'll include, as I said, everyone.
Okay.
So thank you, ma'am.
Can you just repeat the dates?
When it's ongoing this week?
Ongoing this week?
Unfortunately, I don't have a calendar in front of me. And then ongoing next week as well.
Okay.
I know, up until school opens.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My office is open every day, so people can go. But we just hold up until 7:30 in the evening, and of course he says 7:30, but it goes on later.
Flexible, yeah.
Because people get off work late, so we are cognizant of that. Always have been.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Doc, I know you.
Thank you very much for allowing me to make that announcement.
You're most welcome, Doc. I know you have to go at 9:15. We have one more caller that we want to grab before you go, though. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, OC.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, my apologies that I couldn't come in, and I'm just 1 foot out of my house. But I'm just gonna itemize a couple of points with the hope that we reflect on them just a little bit. Okay. And education obviously is very important.
And for our listeners, we want to say that Miss Teresa Pitcairn, she was due to be in the show this morning, but she has other pressing issues, and so.
Yeah. So to the point about teachers and their competence, that's very, very important. Quite a number of our teachers actually care, and they actually prepare. And I heard Dr. Miss Mary, and I understand, her concerns and so on. But I'm just carving out areas also for teachers that I know who actually care, who actually prepare, who actually use what money they have to feed kids that come to school, and to try at the very least to stabilize classrooms when the circumstances are such that the majority of kids in some areas actually detract from other children being able to learn. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in the classroom which has to be addressed and has not been adequately addressed, and we've not even being honest about these situations that we find in our classroom. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other one was with respect to parents as advocates for their children. There is no guarantee that when you send your children to a private school, and we know how costly those are, that you're going to get the results that you likely want. But parents who tend, and this is just a general statement, parents who tend to send the kids to private school, one, usually have the financial wherewithal, or two, understand and value important education sufficiently so that even when there are concerns that they have even about the school itself, they ensure that they stay on top of things to make sure that their children deliver it. And I know that personally because it's not uncommon to find kids, no matter how bright they are, whether in the public school or in the private school, that are competent, but you have the teachers that are teaching the kids, one, perhaps don't understand the children, and I heard the conversation that we had earlier about cultural competencies and nuances as well, because that's so very important. But also, if a teacher is not necessarily interested in the success of your kid and does not have the historical, cultural understanding of the value of education in our community, given its past, that's another phenomenon. And when you have someone coming in here for the first time, it's unlikely that they're going to have this wealth of knowledge and experience, which they will need to even start on day one when they go into the classroom. And I'll just follow that up with a final point. One of the concerns that we have in football, for example, is that we're asking folks to run these organizations where FIFA, contributes an excessive amount of money to run these programs. And the people that tend, and I say tend because I don't want to generalize completely, are usually folks who don't have an education background which facilitates their ability to run multi-million environments. And this is what football is now asking folks to do. We have found historically the folks that go into football before it became what it is, it was usually a way of addressing poverty. It's, when children are leave school in the afternoon and they don't have anywhere to go, football is so loved that it's a sport that you will always find children playing, whether they don't have shoes on or whether they're not even playing on proper ground. So these people will move up the ladder and tend to become leaders of football. What you now have is a situation where FIFA is trying to create systems whereby you have leaders in football actually run it like a business. But you're now having, for example, in communities like ours in the Caribbean, where folks from Europe are being asked to train people in the Caribbean. And the last thing folks that come from a colonial background want is to have somebody from Europe coming to tell them what they don't know, what they need to know in order to be effective. So you see that even with the best intentions, with people coming from the UK or the US or other places where they are with similar cultural backgrounds, it's hard from day one to start to engage people who don't even trust you to deliver what you're required to do. So education is a very, very complex thing. So imagine that, for example, in football. It's no different with us in our schools here. For example, if I went into a classroom and I knew your son was in there, and if your son gave me the role, I would pick him up and I'd say, you think I'm going to let you behave this way in my classroom? I'm going to call you dad. So everybody's on WhatsApp, and we have that relationship when you get started. And I'm not saying that is the only thing, obviously, that is required to motivate and discipline our kids. Because what I would want as a Caymanian, for example, I would want for my children, Caymanian or otherwise, in that classroom, I would want them to succeed. And not everyone starts on day one with that agenda. And I mean, so it's very, very difficult and sometimes even unfair to have the expectations from people coming from a different community and asking them to care about and teach their children, because teaching is not only about telling kids about ABCs and mathematics. It's also something inside. And this is one of the reasons why you see Jamaicans, for example, do so very, very, very well and are always being, required or asked to come and teach in the United States or even places like Japan.
Ms. T, we were past a commercial break. I don't know if you want to stay on the line. We can take the commercial break and have you continue afterwards.
I'm going to remember those are some of the key things that I wanted to raise. Bye for now. Have a good one. Bye now.
Okay, thanks. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world.
Support our port, support our tourism.
The cruise
cruise berthing facility will be paid for using cruise passengers' fees and not by funding from the government. Passenger fees currently paid to the Port Authority and Environmental Protection Fund will remain unchanged. This is a win for Cayman. Support our port, support our tourism.
Looking forward, looking bright. Support our port, support our tourism.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Dr. Steve McField has left us. He had to leave at 9:15, unfortunately, but we still have the pleasure of having with us Honorable Mayor Lawrence. Madam Speaker is here, and she's a former educator herself as well. So she has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field of education as well. Now, I want to point out to our listening and viewing audience that we have spoken primarily about primary education and secondary education. We haven't spoken much about tertiary education, and because, for instance, while the University College of the Cayman Islands falls under the ministry, we have a law school, for instance, that is not affiliated, to my knowledge, not affiliated with the University College of the Cayman Islands, and is headed up by the Attorney General, a situation where I can understand, the symbiotic relationship to a certain extent. But my question would be, I'm not sure of any other jurisdiction where a law school falls under the purview of the Attorney General in the Cayman Islands. That has always been my criticism. Not that it has in any way affected the curriculum or the output of the of the school itself. It's just the visuals of it. As far as I'm concerned, Madam Speaker.
Well, one of the problems we have here is the incoherency of the system. We have private schools doing this thing out here. We have government schools doing this thing out here. We have primary schools doing their own thing. We have high schools doing their own thing. We have the law school doing its own thing. That has always done its own thing, irrespective of what any criticism that might have been offered or suggestions have been offered in that direction. We have the University College that is supposed to be the follow-through from secondary education for our young people here. But none of these things are correlated. And this is the problem. We are moving children from primary schools into high school, into the high school system. Are they prepared? Are they prepared for secondary education? When you get into secondary education, and this has been this is another problem we have here. We have children. You can have 20 children in a classroom. Some of our classes are too big, particularly in the younger ages. But you'll have 20 children in a classroom. And there's 5 of them that is super bright. They're going to learn no matter where you put them down. You can put them on the floor. You can keep them home. They're going to learn. But the rest of them are going to require some real serious effort. And when you get to the last 10, it's really, really serious effort required. And so you need backup. You need to be, teachers and schools need to be willing to accept volunteers to come in to hear children read, for example, or to work with the child, the slower child, or even to work with a child. When I went to the middle school to work, my task was to work with children who did not fit in the classroom, who could not function in the classroom, and to work with that child until I got him to the point, or her to the point, where they could sit in the classroom with me sitting beside them to begin with, and gradually I could inch away and work with another child. But it could be done. And the thing with us here now is that we're not willing to try anything new. I admire the Minister Conley's dream, but I know for a fact she's going to have a hard time putting it into reality, because the very people that she is depending on to help her get that dream accomplished are the people she's going to meet the most opposition from.
But she does seem to have support from Mr. Dan Scott, who's the chair of the board.
The chair of the board. She'll get support from him, but she needs the support in that classroom. That's where she needs the support. And they need to start involving parents in schools. And I know we have, I don't know of any parent. I've never spoken to any parent in this island. I don't care how lowly their circumstances and how many jobs they have to carry on to feed their children. I have never heard one parent say, I don't want my child to learn. They all want their child to learn. Mm-hmm. Now, they might not be able to help them. Mm-hmm. And when you approach them with an attitude that, well, you're stupid anyway, so you really can't help your child. When you approach them with the attitude that they really have no place in their child's education, they can't do in their child's education what a parent maybe in a private school might be able to do. Like Teresa said, parents in the private school back to school. Parents in the government school are not even invited to back to school. And this is where the problem is. If it has to be a mutual effort, community, school, family, education department, education ministry, everybody pulling together.
All hands
to
on
get
board.
The job done.
Yep. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning to you all.
Good morning, sir.
Yes. Well, when it comes to educating our young people, I was reading in the paper about the new law that the Attorney General is considering decriminalizing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important that we educate our young people, especially those who may be having problems with depression or bullying, that the exact meaning of this new law when it comes to suicide, so that they don't think that by them passing this suicide law, that it's okay for them if they're facing depression or bullying or whatever, that it's okay for them to take their own lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller, for that as well. Good time for us to take a commercial break. Miss Susan, when we return, we will have less than half an hour to go on the show as well. So please stay tuned For the Record. We'll be back shortly.
Gym tonight?
I have another test today.
Wow, for somebody who isn't in school, you've had a lot of tests this week.
Well, Vamp Motors is giving out fresh baked cookies to customers who test drive SUVs this month. And since I haven't decided what to buy, I'm just test driving each one to see what I like best.
You better test drive that to the gym and back, especially with all those free cookies you're getting from Vamp.
Take a test drive for a sweet surprise this August at Vamp Motors. Test drive any SUV and receive a freshly baked cookie. It's our way of saying thanks for dropping by to check out our huge sale on every SUV in stock. Save up to $4,400 during Vamp's summer SUV sale. Now through the end of August. That's every SUV in stock on sale. Save up to $4,400 or put the savings towards upgrading your vehicle. Sweeten the deal with Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Sailing the high seas. That's the theme for this year's Miss Teen pageant.
The 39th annual Miss Teen Cayman Islands pageant will be held at the Lions Community Center on Saturday, August 24th. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Showtime is at 7 p.m.
Tickets are available at Funky Tangs, Lorna's Rubis, The Finishing Touch, Sings Roadie Shop, and Event Pro. Premium seating is $40 pre-sold, $50 at the gate. General admission is $25 pre-sold, $30 at the gate. Children ages 6 to 12, $15 $50 pre-sold, $20 at the gate.
Thanks to our sponsors, Digicel, Marshall's Rent-A-Car, Grandville House, CUC,
Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports, Agriculture and Lands, The Finishing Touch, Rubis, King Sports Center, Eclipse Hair Design and Day Spa,
Island Embroidery, Margaritaville Beach Resort, and Radio Cayman. See you at the Lion Center on Saturday, August 24th.
The Miss Teens 2019 pageant, we are sailing the high seas.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio, we have Honorable Mayor Lawrence. We're talking about education in the Cayman Islands, inspired by this conversation, this topic this morning, inspired by the education. I call it a conference, but I think it was to welcome the new educators here in the Cayman Islands for our public schools, and that took place on Monday. And the Minister, Honourable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, and other speakers as well spoke about the Cayman Islands and developing a world-class education system in the Cayman Islands, and that was at the Education Professionals Welcome event on Monday as well. I want to remind our listeners that we have less than half an hour to go. Our phone lines are still open. We do have one caller. Once we get the mic back over to the Honourable Speaker, I'm going to have her make some comments about homeschooling in the Cayman Islands and talk about whether the prevalence or a lack of it in the Cayman Islands, and why some people choose to homeschool, and the pros and cons of homeschooling as well. Let's go to the phone lines first, though. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you very much. And good morning to Miss Lawrence as well, and
good morning,
and to your listeners. Thank you so much for the comments that you made, suggestions. For the lack of, there's only a certain amount of time I have on here, but I do agree with you, ma'am, that schools could use the services of volunteers, such as maybe past educators, parents who are capable of doing so and are willing to do so, to be a part of the system, in as much as, when it comes to reading and assisting children with the ability to read well. I think the schools could use that service of other people who'd like to come in and volunteer. One of the things that I've had a problem with for a very long time, and I don't want to dwell on anything negative, but I do believe that it is better for the education of our children that in the government primary schools, when it's time for them to move on from primary, they should be moving into a middle school system and not into a high school system where you have children who are maybe, 10, 11, and they move from that sort of, it's just a more, within the primary school, it's a whole different atmosphere. And suddenly, you go on summer vacation, and then you're bussed into the high school, and you're intermingling with children then who are maybe 15, 16, 17 perhaps. And I'm not sure that is a drastic change, whereas moving into a middle school would be a much better system. And we could, in that indirect way, reduce the number of children within the classrooms. You would not have an overcrowding. Also, I'm not sure that I am really up to date, up to, whether the big function that was had the other day, and I congratulate the Minister, Mrs. O'Connor Conley, on that. But it would seem to me when it comes to education, it should be the concern of all citizens. And I'm wondering whether even private schools should not be a part of that and that thrust and that effort to bring more enthusiasm and excitement into the education of our children. What I'm saying is the private schools seem to be out there all to themselves. But when it comes to education, it's everybody's concern. So these are only some observations that I've had, and I want to thank you, sir, for the time that you've given me.
Thank you very much, caller, as well, for your comments and input, Madam Speaker.
Well, until everybody gets on board with education, and I'm talking about education, I'm not talking about academics. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about education, real education, where the child learns and is encouraged to develop as a whole person, that he learns the manners and the rules of society, so that when he does get that academic standing, he can go out there and function in the society. But we also have to teach our children to give back. Our young people are coming back to this island. We take them through the academics in the high school. They do well. We give them a scholarship. We send them abroad all over the world to get an education, and they come back. And there's no requirement on them to give back into this community. They get a job, they get a car, they do their own thing. This is one of the failings of our society. It's a failing in the secondary system, where we don't encourage our young people to give back. We're talking now about children needing tutoring within the classroom, and yet we have seniors within the school that could well help a younger child. You pair them up with them at a lunchtime program or in an after-school program, and you encourage them to give back to the community. We're not doing that. And as far as the private schools go, we have that. There's that big divide between government and the private schools, and we have parents now who are so desperate that they'll pay any fee the private school asks to get their child into an already overcrowded classroom, because some of their classrooms are crowded just more so than the government school system is. But we push to get our children in there because there's this hunger within people and this desperation within parents to make sure that their child gets an education. And so they sacrifice and they pay very high school fees to get their children into private schools. And if we got our act together, the same thing could happen in the government schools. The programs that we are looking for in the private schools, the level of education that we say is in the private schools, we could have that in the public schools. And one of the things we did here that was, again, a backward step was when we decided that people who come here couldn't send their children to government schools. All the years that, for years and years and years, everybody who came here went to the same school, unless they really wanted to go to a private school. Mm-hmm. Now they are encouraged to go to the private schools, and government supports the private schools, financially supports the private schools, but they don't make any demands on the private schools. They don't say to the private schools, listen, we're giving you $2 million this year, we want 50 places.
They don't. Okay.
There is no government just hands the money over. And the thing is that we provided a prep school with the campus they have. We subsidized the Catholic school with the campus they have. We subsidized CCC when they were building their campus. These are capital subsidies. Mm-hmm. And then we turn around and every year we give them an annual grant. And they say, well, it's because government doesn't have space to house all the children. Well, if government doesn't have space to house all the children and we're paying the private schools these large sums of money, then we should be getting something back for it. We should be getting so many spaces back that the child who can do well but whose parents cannot afford to send them there would have an opportunity to go.
Okay, we have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to my favorite speaker.
Good morning.
I'm calling because I think this is a great subject this morning, and because I have noticed, we all know where we came from back in the day when we didn't have. I remember raised up, not even having high school to go to, but when I think about, and I'm just using this as an example of good teachers, when I think about how men like myself and boys went to sea, didn't have much over. If you had a sixth grade education, you were considered, that's it. And we go there, and we go to these places. We traveled, went all over the world, and we had an opportunity to become engineers, chief mates, everything you could think about that works on a ship. And we went up and took the test. Never went to no private. Yes, you had to read some books and stuff, but you didn't go to no special school or anything. You just went up and you did what you had to do, and you passed that test and became some of the best engineers, the best captains and chief mates, and it just amazes us, or amazes me, that the teachers of the day insisted upon children learning what they were taught. You see, today we have a system where they use computers and all this kind of thing, and it's sad what's happening with the tech. You know what technology has done to things like education. But I think that's one of the problems today, that you see the kids with the computers in the classrooms, and we ask them what 12 is, they can't tell you. And I remember all my timetables from the time I was 6, 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it has to do with the method of teaching. And I want to mention this now, that there's a thing in I'm sure you guys probably heard of it, know of it, but there's a thing called Vedic math, where I've seen children 8 and 10 years old that would say, like, what's the quotient of, or what is it? If you multiplied 150 by 160, what would be the answer? And they do this in their head, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if not, you can go online and just check out what Vedic math is. And I've suggested some time ago that we should have people like that with that kind of teaching to be here, because that would be very helpful with these children. Because if you don't have a computer, I've been to some of these fast food stores, not here in Cayman, but when I lived in the States, you go in there and they couldn't give you the correct change because they didn't have the computer was down. You see, and that's what I'm saying, that when we have the practical things done, where you had to use your memory, it builds your mind. And I think that's what we need of more than anything else, is to those kind of teachers that can instill in children that, if you can, I don't know what would do, but I'm just saying it's a way to improve on all the stuff that they do.
Okay, thank you very much, caller, for that. We're going to take our last commercial break. When we return, we'll probably have about 12 minutes left to go on the show. What we will do, we will close the phone lines off at this point in time, because we want to give our panel here, the remaining member of our panel here, an opportunity for wind up and closing comments. And we still haven't yet been able to talk about homeschooling, Madam Speaker. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
In 1996, Rotary Club Central led the way, initiating a disaster fund to prepare and assist our community toward recovery. The Rotary Clubs of the Cayman Islands then expanded this valuable instrument, the Rotary Cayman Disaster Fund. Thereafter, Rotary District 7020, a group of 86 clubs over 10 countries in 16 islands across the Northwest Caribbean, grew this idea, the Rotary District 7020 Disaster Fund. Today, this Rotary Central idea has worked relief and recovery, assisting communities throughout this region. Rotary, with you before, during, and after. Rotary, connecting the world. Wednesday, August 21 at 4 p.m. You are invited to the grand opening of the new Superior Auto Apprenticeship Center on Seymour Drive. New opportunity, new beginnings, new home for Caymanian youth seeking career training and certification in high-demand trades like automotive repairs, air conditioning, refrigeration, plumbing, electrical, metal fabrication, and more. Come witness, celebrate the cutting of the ribbon. At 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoon, August 21, another milestone. The Superior Auto Apprenticeship Center, a not-for-profit program successfully training and creating employment alignment since 2010. Purpose and fulfillment.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Hey, are those new glasses on Will?
Yeah, we went to Optical Outlook. Wham, bam, easy exam. Finally, an exam he could pass. And we had the glasses the next day. Easiest part of our back-to-school shopping for sure.
Book your child's eye exam today at Optical Outlook. Call 746-2020. Get half off a complete pair of glasses with any student's eye exam now until August 31st. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook, located in Caymanian Village.
Terms and conditions apply.
Support our port, support our tourism.
The new pier design achieves our government's mandate to minimize the impact on the environment. There will be no dredging in Hogstye Bay. This is a win for Cayman. Support our port, support our tourism.
Looking forward, looking bright. Support our port, support our tourism.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Honorable Mary Lawrence. We've closed off the phone lines because we're almost at the end of the show this morning, speaking primarily about education in the Cayman Islands. Just some more facts for you. In the current budget cycle, I think it was estimated that government would spend somewhere in the vicinity of $110 million on education. We did hear Minister Juliana O'Connor speak about the increases in salaries for some teachers and those who the increase didn't address because they were at a particular juncture in where their salary was, that they're making provisions, to accommodate them as well as far as increases are concerned. So around about $110 million, if the port figures are correct, $200 million. So in 1 year, for education in the Cayman Islands, we would have spent half of what the port project would cost. Not to bring that into the conversation. I just wanted to mention that. Also, talking about private schools, I found an article here on Caymanian Compass, and this was in November of 2018, so fairly up to date in terms of the private schools that are operating in the Cayman Islands, and we have Cayman Academy, Cayman International School, we have Cayman Prep and High School, we have First Baptist Christian School, Grace Christian Academy, Hope Academy, Montessori by the Sea, St. Ignatius Catholic School, Triple C School, Wesleyan Christian Academy as well. So quite a number of private schools in the Cayman Islands. Very quickly, Madam Speaker, let's talk a little bit about homeschooling.
Well, homeschooling is taking root in the Cayman Islands, or in Cayman, Grand Cayman, because parents are so dissatisfied with what their children are getting in the classrooms. My own daughter has homeschooled her children, and they have done very well. The problem is that not every parent can do that. And so parents are left scrambling around trying to find someone who's going to improve the education status of their children. And, you know, she gets calls every day for people who want her to homeschool their child because, like I said, parents are desperate. They're looking at the situation and realizing that's why so many parents are trying to get their children into private schools. But the other factor is that the private schools pick, choose, and refuse. You know, if you go to them to put your child in, they're not going to take your child if it has a problem. They're not going to take the child. Some parents have been told, well, your child needs 2 years of tutoring before we can take him by private schools. And so the situation becomes more and more desperate. Public education is the answer. It has always been the answer, but it has to be properly monitored, and it cannot be left to just roll on its own. If they're going to put in an authority to run the entire thing, or they're going to make sure that the board, I think it's headed by Mr. Scott now, it has an overview of all the schools. If they're going to do that, then maybe we're going to make some progress.
What about the idea of local school boards for each district?
Well, that is as far away as that idea of having the district councils, because, you know, we have, like in Bodentown, we have 4 little constituencies and everybody does their own little thing. If we had the district council, one district council for the Bodentown district, pulled from the 4 constituencies, we might make some progress. But that doesn't happen either. One school is in East Bodentown, the other one is in Savannah. And parents and politicians struggle to get something done in the schools that's going to improve the situation. It's the education, like everything else around here, is very political. And that's one of the problems we've had over the years. Every new directorate changes the system. We went through the thing where we had the middle school system. That didn't work. We went through the thing where that's how we got these open classrooms that we're talking about, that we built up in Northside that can't function. We got that because we went to England and somebody said, oh, this is the road. Didn't even look at the fact that this system had been rejected and had not worked from before. You know, now we're coming back to where I don't know if they're going to include the common entrance exam from the Caribbean or not, but we're going back to a mainly British system again within the schools. And we have to make sure that the teachers that we are putting in the classrooms will dedicate themselves to making that curriculum work. Because if they don't do that, we're not going to get anywhere again. This government will change in 2021. Whether Mrs. O'Connor Conley runs again, whether she continues as the education minister, is a matter of political preference. And the next person comes along, wants to put their mark on it, and they will change the system again.
Do you feel that the remuneration of teachers in the Cayman Islands is sufficient?
I think the remuneration should have been based on performance.
Okay, performance-based.
You know, in other places, it's based on performance. And I believe teachers should be well paid. Don't get me wrong. They are the people who are going to determine what Cayman is going to be like 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
The teachers that are in the classroom now, they're going to make that determination. And I believe they should be well paid. They should be paid a living wage. But I also believe that this paying everybody across the board, whether they perform or not, unless there is something there within the system that if that teacher is not performing at the level you think they should be performing at, they're not meeting the criteria for performance in the classroom, that person can be removed. But for some reason or other, we don't seem to be able to do this. Over the years, we promote these people. And we put them up in the department, we put them up in the ministry, and then they become the people who are directing the course of education. We have to set a standard, and we have to maintain that standard. And like I said, I admire Mrs. O'Connor Conley's dream, but I know she's going to have an uphill battle because there are a lot of people within the system who do not want or who have no interest and who will not be pushed into performing at the level they should perform at. And our children are going to pay the price. And
you don't think that we have the structures in place that will weed them out of the system?
We don't have the structure in place to weed them out of the system, and we don't. And for some reason or other, the will to do so seems to be missing as well. And I mean, this again, and I go back to this again. We need parent-teachers associations within the school. Functioning parent-teachers associations where parents can come in and they can say their piece. Okay, you might not agree that my child is the best student in the school, and Lord help you, maybe you might take it even out on the poor little child. But the fact of the matter is I need to be able to go to the school in a PTA and stand up and say, listen, on the playground today there was an incident that I heard about. My child was injured in that incident. What are we going to do about it? What are we doing to ensure safety on the playground? What are we doing to ensure, Ms. Teresa raised the thing about the different levels of children in the classroom. What are we doing to cope with the different levels of children in the classroom? Sure, there are children who are more active, but a lot of times that's a child who's bored. The child who's up and around because he finishes work before anybody else is the child that the teacher is going to say he has to sit down. And if he can't sit down, and how else we'll make him sit down, and we'll get some tablets and we'll make him sit down using those. But the amazing thing about it is that brilliant children are falling through the cracks because we don't concentrate on brilliant children. We seem to... We're pushing for mediocrity. We're not saying that, we're not raising the levels and saying this is where you have to go. This is what you have to be. This is where you have to be. And so when you talk about moving children from the primary school, they're at age 10 or whatever, Mrs. Orrett said, when you're moving children from the primary school, the child should be prepared to go into secondary education. Yeah. And if he's not prepared to go and say, there's nothing wrong with keeping that child an extra year to make sure he is prepared to go there. There's nothing wrong in making him come back to summer school like they do in so many other countries to prepare for that transition.
Okay.
But we have there's all these little things that's going to make it work.
Yep.
New textbooks, new workbooks, new teachers, better salaries. All of that is now going to be in place for the new school year. But to make it work, everybody has to get on board.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you very much for being here this morning talking about preparation. It's a good thing that we didn't give you advance warning to be prepared because you certainly brought a lot with you, and of course that comes really, from experience and everything else. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. Steve Macfield as well, even though he had to leave early, and Ms. Teresa for her input, even though she couldn't be around the table this morning. I
appreciated her input because she added another perspective to it.
Yes, certainly. Folks, I want to thank you as well for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension for the record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity because we always want to consider those those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. John Sterling, Dweeny Mikes at 12:15 for a talk. Today, on Friday, we will have the official opposition here with us. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
Radio Cayman.